Hello, YouTube. This is Mahadev the Thunder Wizard. Hope you guys are all doing well. And we are going to continue talking about the transdimensional revolution. I can't decide which name I like better, transdimensional revolution or interdimensional revolution. I think interdimensional revolution might end up being better. What is the interdimensional revolution? The interdimensional revolution is something that is a natural occurrence that is in the process of happening, that has to happen in order for the human race to evolve. So we know, even though we think we know what history is, even though we think we can look at things and come to a conclusion about what we think has happened in history, the truth is that time and history are not things that are set in stone. These are things that change. Not because people change, they do, but because the actual history itself is changing. Time is not something we can depend on, the future or the past. But when we look at whatever evidence we have, we see that the world changes in giant, instantaneous, sudden leaps of evolution. And we are in one of those periods. Time will tell, but everything that I'm experiencing, everything that I'm seeing, all of the information that I'm getting is telling me that we are on the cusp of a massive, huge, instantaneous evolutionary shift. And the only way that that is going to happen is by the human race engaging in an all-out, global, interdimensional revolution. And it is not a revolution that will achieve anything through any of the methods that we are normally used to. There is nothing that you can do in the 3D realm that's going to bring us freedom. And to be very clear, the interdimensional revolution is a revolution to completely, totally destroy, defeat, disempower the psychopathic rulers of this world. And I don't care what you believe them to be or not. Anybody, if they take a look at the world, will see that there is a small group of people who have all of the power. And they are not going to relinquish that power unless we make it impossible for them to hold on to that power. And we are not going to be able to defeat them through any kind of physical revolution. So this isn't a political revolution. It's not a physical revolution. It's not an economic revolution. It's not a philosophical revolution. It's not a spiritual or religious revolution. It is a dimensional revolution. And so what I want to focus on is how we can take their power away from them. And how we're going to do that is by shifting internally. And as I said, I use my words very carefully. This is not a psychological revolution. This is not a political revolution. It is not a spiritual revolution. So it may sound what I'm Like what I'm telling you is to engage in a spiritual revolution, or maybe even a philosophical or religious revolution. I am not telling you to do that. Because philosophy, religion, even spirituality are three-dimensional things. They're things that work within the three-dimensional framework. So this has to be a dimensional revolution. We literally have to change our energetic vibration to a higher dimension, not just a higher vibration within 3D, a completely new dimensional vibration. And so the first thing that we do is we disconnect. We disconnect from the 3D narrative. The 3D narrative, within the 3D, now bear in mind, no matter how peaceful you are, no matter how loving you are, you can look at the so-called woke people out there who honestly believe that they are fighting for equality and they are fighting against prejudice and judgment. But what are they? They're very judgmental in the process of doing that. They're very aggressive. They're very critical. They attack people. And so this isn't about attacking anybody. If you do this interdimensional revolution correctly, there will be nothing that you do that will even let the 3D psychopath rulers know that you are going through an interdimensional revolution. They're only going to know it if you fight against them in the third dimension. I'm not saying that you have to hide what you're doing or pretend you're not doing it. I'm just saying that what you do is not going to be associated with calling anybody out, voting somebody out of office, voting somebody new into office, preaching to the world a new religion, getting people to it's got nothing to do with that. It's very simple. We connect to higher dimensions through energy practices. Now, the thing about energy practices, you don't have to be religious. Many energy practices in the past have been under the umbrella of religions. For instance, if you want to become a Tibetan Buddhist, for example, they may teach you some energy practices and some meditations, but they're also going to teach you the religion of Buddhism. Same thing with Hinduism, yoga, all kinds of things. Taoism, the stuff that I've worked in, not so much nowadays, but in the past, you would have to learn Taoist understanding. People don't realize that Taoism was a very intricate religion. It followed a lot of rules. It was a very intricate polytheist religion. People think Lao Tzu is the founder of Taoism, and he's not. Lao Tzu was a philosopher, but he had almost nothing to do with actual Taoism, the religion of Taoism, which you had altars and specific gods, and you had to say certain things and light certain candles, and you had to go through. It was a very intense religion. Anyway, I get off subject here. I'm going to read from my latest book, which I am in the process of writing. Let's see, which chapter should I read? I want to read the one that I just finished writing today. So you'll have to forgive me. I hope you're not bored with this subject, but I think it's incredibly important that we become clear what alien abductions really are, the purpose of alien abductions, and what they accomplish. Because if there is one thing that we need to address and fight against, it is the third dimension mainstream narrative. Alien abductions act, as strange as this is going to sound. The idea of alien abductions and the phenomenon of alien abductions is actually the spearhead of the mainstream narrative. The mainstream three-dimensional narrative that is designed to hypnotize you and program you into staying stuck in three-dimensional ways of thinking and living. And the brilliance of it is that it is presented as something that's a fringe subject. That's on the fringe of reality. In fact, even though the Congress and the military and the government have openly started having governmental hearings on UFOs, hinting, they haven't said it, but they're hinting that UFOs are piloted by extraterrestrial beings. Even though that is going on, there's no real communication over what it means. So the mainstream narrative is very subtly introducing to the world in slow increments the idea, number one, that extraterrestrials exist, and then they are going to control the narrative of wanting you to believe their narrative of what extraterrestrials are. And they are going to phase this into our society very slowly. They want to have complete control over the narrative. And so this transdimensional revolution is going to take away their power to control the narrative. Anyway, I'll get into to some of the reasons behind that. So let's see, what have I called this? Why? Okay, so the chapter is currently called Why Alien Abductions Are Illogical. I don't know, it's a working title. I'll come up with a better title later when I'm ready to publish this. And by the way, the book itself is right there, Interdimensional Revolution. I spent a lot of time creating that beautiful graphic for the audio book. So that's my hope. My hope is that the audio books really take off. All right. Why alien abductions are illogical. Humans have been obsessed with the idea of being attacked and conquered by extraterrestrial invaders for as long as we could imagine the concept. Meaning that there were times when humans didn't even have the ability to imagine anything like that. But as soon as we had the ability to imagine other planets and civilizations on other planets, from the moment that we could do that, we started thinking about being conquered and attacked by extraterrestrials. In recent times, the idea of alien invasion goes at least as far back as the famous novel War of the Worlds, written by H.G. Wells in 1897. I know I myself was frightened at the thought of extraterrestrials based on movies, books, and popular media accounts of alien abductions until I actually met an ET, created an ongoing relationship with ETs, and learned what they really were. It is built into our 3D human animal bodies and minds to be afraid of anything we don't understand. We are physically designed to be afraid of any external threat by forces stronger than we are. So our first instinct when confronted with any threat of a more powerful, dangerous force is to first go into denial, hoping the threat will just go away. If we feel we are unable to deny the existence of an imminent threat to our survival, we go into a state of panic. As animals, physically, in the third dimension, when we humans go into panic mode, we become disconnected from our higher brain functions, Let me just change that word. From our higher brain functions, and we lose access to any critical thinking skills we might have. We regress into frightened monkeys and run around screeching and clawing at everything around us in a blind attempt at self-preservation. So before we dive into examining what aliens are, we need to stop and create a critical thinking framework if what we want is to find out the truth of the matter. As a fan of the science of critical thinking, when I become aware that I am facing a concept that causes me to regress and start acting like a frightened monkey, I come back to the basics of critical thinking analysis. In my experience teaching and counseling people most of my adult life, if we are examining a frightening concept, we must first seek to find a common, definitive, basic assumption about the subject before even beginning to discuss anything. Remember, we're dealing with survival instincts that go back millions of years in our primate DNA. If there is the slightest chance that we are emotionally attached to a certain assumption, we will not be able to critically examine any subject. So, since we already know that the concept of the existence of extraterrestrials is frightening to humans because we don't understand them, we must step back and establish some basic assumptions before we start discussing anything. Otherwise, as I have found to be true over the years, if someone is not aware of their base assumptions, they will only react emotionally to protect their beliefs. I have already introduced to you my assumptions, which are that, number one, there is a difference between extraterrestrials and aliens. That is a base assumption. That is my biggest beef with the ufology crowd. I mean, I never gave a crap about ufology. I'm still not a ufologist. I don't go around looking for, evidence of spacecraft or any of that stuff that ufologists are just obsessed with. They're obsessed with different species of aliens. I mean, who cares? I care as much about what kind of species there are in the universe as I care about how many different types of eye color there is or hair color. It's just meaningless. It's superficial nonsense. But these are the kinds of things that ufologists are really into. But what drives me crazy the most is it's not their fault because the vast majority of them have had zero conscious connection with extraterrestrials, so they have no idea what they are. And so they operate from a projection of the 3D, which is they assume extraterrestrials are 3D physical animals like me and you. And so they project onto them all the same kinds of things that humans are. And that's inaccurate. And so they conflate alien abductions with extraterrestrial contact. There's no shortage of people out there that go to these ufology things, that follow ufology, even people who do, lots of people who are interested in CE5, who don't know the difference. That when you talk about aliens, in their mind, they don't realize they have an assumption in their mind where they are conflating the two. And I'm here to tell you that, if you're not aware of your assumptions and what you believe and what you don't believe, you're going to be very easily confused and distracted and manipulated and all that kind of stuff. So I am giving you an assumption that I hope you can hold on to. You can come back to a different assumption later, but just follow this for now. I think I'm going to repeat myself here in a second as I read. So I've already introduced to you my assumptions, which are, number one, there is a difference between ETs and aliens. Number two, extraterrestrials are higher dimensional beings from other planets. Extraterrestrial. Number three, extraterrestrials are incapable of having any predatory intent towards humans because of their higher dimensional nature. I've talked about that ad nauseum. That is an assumption that I have come to based on my experience. Most people don't share that assumption. Many ufologists believe that extraterrestrials are just as capable of predatory, evil, psychopathic intentions as humans. And that's an assumption. It's an assumption based on people's experience, but it's an assumption nonetheless. I am introducing you a different assumption. And if that assumption is true, then that means the entire discussion about aliens, extraterrestrials, and alien abductions takes on a whole new light. So, this is number 3 of my assumption. Extraterrestrials are incapable of having any predatory intent toward humans because of their higher dimensional nature. Number 4, my 4th assumption. Extraterrestrials are spiritually connected and directly related to humans and to the evolution of society on Earth. Thus, they have no desire to invade or destroy Earth. That's another assumption that most ufologists and followers of alien lore don't have. They don't know, to the extent, how connected extraterrestrials are to humans, to human history, to human culture, and to humans in general. And if you don't know this, this is going to have a huge impact on how you view this whole phenomenon. Number 5, my 5th assumption that I carry is that extraterrestrials have appeared on Earth in recent years in an attempt to help us evolve beyond our limited 3-dimensional state to a more blissful spiritual experience of Earth. So they are beginning to appear in extraterrestrial form and in extraterrestrial ways, in ways where we begin to see them as extraterrestrials. And they're doing this on purpose because that is part of what is necessary for us to evolve up to their level of awareness. We have to drop our old assumptions about everything, including what spirit guides and angels and everything else are, in order to move on. So that is an assumption that a lot of ufologists don't even know that they have. They haven't even examined any of this. 6th assumption, ETs love humans intensely and will never do anything to violate our physical, emotional, or spiritual boundaries. All right? So without any editorial comments, I'm going to read these assumptions again. These are my assumptions. You can choose to accept them or reject them, but at the very least, you need to know what they are if we're going to have a cogent discussion about the alien abduction phenomenon. My assumptions are, number 1, there is a difference between ETs and aliens. Number 2, extraterrestrials are higher dimensional beings from other planets. Number 3, extraterrestrials are incapable of having any predatory intent toward humans because of their higher dimensional nature. Number 4, extraterrestrials are spiritually connected and directly related to humans and the evolution of human society on Earth. Thus, they have no desire to invade or destroy Earth. Number 5, extraterrestrials have appeared on Earth in recent years in an attempt to help us evolve beyond our limited 3-dimensional state and evolve to a more blissful spiritual experience of Earth. And number 6, ETs love humans intensely and will never do anything to violate our physical, emotional, or spiritual boundaries. I continue to read. So those are my assumptions. You're free to believe or disbelieve them, but in order to have a cogent argument with me about ETs, it serves us both if we know what my assumptions are. If you have different assumptions about the nature of ETs, aliens, and human encounters with both types of beings, then we both need to know what our assumptions are before we can accurately examine our emotional attachments to the subject. It is possible that you may not even be consciously aware of what your base assumptions are, especially if you have any unconscious emotional agendas about the subject. I shared with you in a previous chapter, you don't know that because you haven't read the book, I shared with you in a previous chapter about my interaction with a so-called ufology expert who was very dismissive about any possibilities that alien abductions were performed by humans. In my observation of his interaction with me, it became apparent to me that he had an unconscious, very strong personal emotional agenda to promote alien abductions as being beneficent and spiritual, because he was making a lot of money on his podcast, YouTube channel, and personal appearances at UFO conferences talking about alien abductions in a wonderful spiritual light, and consciously or unconsciously conflating alien abductions with ET encounters. When I told him that I was a contactee of extraterrestrials and that I could assure him from my own personal experience that ETs never abducted anyone, but in fact, alien abductions were performed solely by humans. His response was to dismiss me entirely by saying, quote, "There's no way humans could create such a far-reaching hoax. There are too many personal accounts of alien abductions. It is too much data for humans to fake," unquote. And while that is his opinion, it is still an unproven assumption. Can you hear the assumption in what he's saying? He says, there's no way humans could create such a far-reaching hoax. There are too many personal accounts of alien abductions. It's too much data for humans to fake. That's an assumption. It's not a self-evident truth. It is an assumption that he believes so strongly in that he dismisses any argument to the contrary and then continues to create, his narrative of how alien abductions are these beautiful spiritual experiences. And I'm saying that is a very dangerous thing to do. All right, continue to read. And while that is his opinion, it is still an unproven assumption to say that humans don't have the resources to plan and carry out a far-reaching hoax to abduct humans and falsely present the abductions as being performed by extraterrestrials or aliens is a logical sounding but still unproven assumption. Ironically, he admittedly bases all of his assumptions on unverifiable human accounts of alien abductions. Yet in his discussion with me, his first dismissal of my assumption that alien abductions were performed solely by deep state military, his response to me was, quote, "Just because you had a personal experience doesn't count as proof," unquote. And then he proceeded to tell me that all of the personal accounts he had cataloged as evidence was too much evidence for them to be faked by humans. So, in essence, he was basically saying, quote, "Personal experience is meaningless because I have other personal experiences that tell me otherwise," unquote. This kind of self-referential double talk is very symptomatic of someone who has a strong emotional attachment to their unconscious assumptions. Now, let me stop here for a second. There's nothing wrong with having a strong emotional attachment to your assumption, but it is absolutely necessary that you be aware of your emotional attachments to your assumptions. For instance, I have a very strong emotional attachment to my assumptions. And I can explain to you why I have a strong emotional attachment to them. My awareness of my emotional attachment to them, because I'm aware of those emotional attachments, allows me the ability to hear a different assumption. And because I am more interested in knowing the truth than I am about protecting my assumptions, I am willing to hear anything that can talk me out of that if I am persuaded that they have the truth behind them. But it's very difficult to get that from somebody who's not even aware of their emotional attachments to their assumptions. All right, continue. And all of this is still giving him the benefit of the doubt that he is not a conscious agent of disinformation, who is not being coached and being paid by deep state interests. Let me stop here again for a second. What makes what this guy is doing so dangerous is that he is playing into the hands of the deep state that is seeking to misdirect, misinform, and outright lie and manipulate to you about the nature of extraterrestrials. This is why the conflation of ETs and extraterrestrials is so dangerous, because there are plenty of people out there, especially ufology experts like this guy, who will remain nameless. These so-called ufology experts want to study and know the truth, but because they don't know what their own assumptions are, and they don't know what their own projections are, and because they've had no personal experience, they have no way to sift between false information and true information. And so they conflate the two. That's what makes it so dangerous, because conflating this information can actually be extremely damaging to the survival of the human species. And for that, we'll talk about at the end why that's a very serious problem. So while I assume, I'm reading again, while I assume his intentions are sincere, it is not impossible for him to be a deep state plant in the ufology community. Some deep state information agents are being manipulated and fed false evidence, and some agents of disinformation are paid by the government and by deep state interests to spread half-truths and conflations to hide their actual shenanigans. So there are people out there who are going around to ufology conferences, they're writing books, they're making movies, they're making documentaries, they're presenting themselves on the news, they're all over the place. And these people are either oftentimes being fed false evidence, or they're outright being supported financially by the deep state, or they are in fact agents of the deep state themselves. And I'll tell you the ones that you know are knowing agents of deep state misinformation. Those are the people who want to limit free speech on UFOs and extraterrestrials. There are people out there, I'm not outing anybody. Luis Elizondo is out there saying that he wants certain people to not have the ability to speak in public about UFOs. And I remember seeing it blew my mind. Nobody's mentioned this. I was watching the government, the United States government congressional hearings about UFOs, and they had military people in there from the Air Force. And there was a Republican, which was also surprising to me, a Republican congressman who was asking the military if there were any laws that prevented average people to talk about UFOs. He was insinuating that he wanted to pass a law making it illegal for anybody other than verified, approved military people to talk about extraterrestrials and UFOs. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That is what you call a deep state plant. That guy's getting paid to say that. He's getting paid to create laws that will make it impossible for me and you to talk openly and publicly about extraterrestrials. Why are they doing that? We'll talk about that at the end of the video. In any case, going back, reading again. In any case, anyone who makes money presenting evidence of alien abductions is at risk of being blinded by their own personal agenda for self-preservation. Talking about aliens at UFO conferences is a good paying gig. Why blow that? Why get honest and start saying, hey, wait a second, alien abductions actually aren't a very spiritual thing. It's the deep state. It's because you guys, the majority of people out there listening to me right now, you guys get off on the idea of alien abductions being these psychopathic, abusive things, and you get off on the idea of conflating them with spiritual or pseudo-spiritual experiences. That's why these guys do it, because you pay them to do it. You pay money to go to UFO conferences to hear people talk about flying saucers and down crashes and alien bodies and government cover-ups, and you're not wanting to talk about what's really happening when you interact with an actual extraterrestrial, because it's not as dirty, it's not as salacious, it's not as obscene. You're into the UFO, down body alien abduction porn. It's porn. It's fear porn. That's why there's money in it. That's why this guy didn't want to hear anything I had to say about, hey man, I talk to ETs on a daily basis. I can promise you alien abductions have nothing to do with ETs. He didn't want to hear a damn thing I had to say because there's no money in it for him. All right, back to the Back to the book. So it's very important that we seek to become aware of our emotional attachments to our assumptions, and even if we don't like the outcome, we must be willing to find the truth at all costs. If my assumptions are correct about the nature of extraterrestrials and alien abductions, the existence of the human race may very well be at risk if we allow ourselves to be manipulated by fear or greed. Those are the two places that you're going to be manipulated. Fear or greed. Greed meaning self-preservation in some other way. Continuing to read. If we each have disagreeing assumptions about the nature of ETs, aliens, and encounters with humans, we first need to critically examine our differing assumptions. Then we'll be able to have a productive conversation about the matter. Because if we can't get past the assumption that, let's say you have the assumption that alien abductions are done by extraterrestrials, and that they're, even though they're really frightening and horrific, they're actually a good thing. If you're not willing to examine that next to my assumption that ETs are not doing this, that humans are doing alien abductions, and that ETs are completely different from that, if we can't get past that assumption, we've got nothing to talk about. So we need to have that discussion first. That's only going to happen with people who want to know the truth. Continuing to read. When it comes to discussing the unknown, if we want to be sure that we at least have the ability to learn the truth, we must be committed to being aware of our emotional attachments and reactions to the subject so that we do not make the fatal mistake of allowing our emotional agendas to blind us to uncomfortable possibilities that do not agree with our emotional survival instinct attachments. While being in fear is unpleasant, it is, however, a state of mind that our primate brains are often drawn to because fear has protected us in the past. So we tend to have a strong emotional attachment to protect our fears and resist any concept that takes us out of fear. Now, this is exactly what the revolution about. The transdimensional revolution is about getting us out of our animal, primate instincts and into a higher dimensional mindset. This is exactly what the Hopis meant when they said that human beings were entering into a stage where they were going to move out of the age of the animal and into the age of the human being. When we're operating from lower three-dimensional vibrations, we operate from animal instincts. Violence, fear, greed, everything associated about the 3D. Money, banks, governments, wars, prejudice. All of these things are animal, instinctual reactions. And so we must learn to be able to tolerate our fears and have the ability to think critically and take action towards higher dimensional understandings, even if it makes our primate monkey brains frightened. This is, by the way, what you're learning by doing the 90-day challenge. What you're learning by doing the lightning qigong is you are learning to take disciplined action in ways that might cause you personal emotional discomfort. You learn how to every day show up and do whatever practices you've committed to, regardless of how you feel. That's going to give you the ability when your monkey brain fears come up inside of you, you will have the ability to go, wow, I'm really afraid, but I'm not going to make decisions based on the fear. If you go back in my channel, I encourage you to go back in my channel to the first successful ET experience that I had recorded there. The one where I'm like in tears, crying because I'm in so much fear. And you can hear me out loud saying, I'm afraid, I'm really afraid. I was consciously acting against my monkey brain fear, which was telling me to run because there was an unseen being in my home with me that was taking over this radio. Let's see if he's here today. If he wants to say hello. He was taking over this radio and making it make all kinds of crazy noises. And there was a finger on my crown chakra, and I couldn't see who it was. I was scared out of and there was an intense energy around me. I was scared out of my mind. There was nothing going on that was worthy of being frightened if I knew what it was. Happens to me all the time now, and I appreciate it. I enjoy it. I look forward to it. But I'd never experienced it before, and my monkey brain fear was going crazy. But I was acting contrary to my fear because I knew that this was worth exploring, and that I knew that there was nothing that was going to happen to me. I was going to be okay. But my body didn't know that. The problem with most people is that they can't differentiate between their body monkey fears and their body monkey survival instincts and their higher consciousness. And in order to move past into the fifth dimension, we must be able to cross beyond our monkey brain fears. And this has everything to do with critical thinking. This is why people conflate. It's because of this very subject. All right, let's keep going. So, while being in fear is unpleasant, it is, however, a state of mind that our primate brains are often drawn to because fear has protected us in the past. So we tend to have a strong emotional attachment to protect our fears and resist any concept that takes us out of fear. So, let's examine possible assumptions about who and what aliens might be. These are only possibilities. But in my experience, these are some of the more popular, unconscious assumptions about aliens and ETs. Assumption possibility number 1. And listen to this one because most people don't realize this is their assumption. But it is an assumption. Assumption possibility number 1. Aliens are three-dimensional, physical beings who exist on other planets and have no connection to humans or human society and have predatory intent on humans and planet Earth. That is by far the most prevalent assumption about aliens, and it is a projection. It is not based on anything other than human beings projecting their own internal 3D monkey fear reality onto something they don't understand. It is a monkey animal instinct to assume that any other creature that isn't part of your monkey tribe is out to kill you and eat you. That fear has kept primates alive for millions of years. And this is the base assumption. And people don't even know that's their assumption. I didn't. And I shared that assumption. Because I'm just like you. I'm a human being. I'm descended from primates. I still have my primate monkey brain telling me what's what. So let me read that to you again. Assumption possibility number 1. It's an assumption. Unverified. Aliens are three-dimensional physical beings who exist on other planets and have no connection to humans or human society and have predatory intent on humans and planet Earth. Assumption possibility number 2. Aliens are three-dimensional beings from Earth who have no connection to humans or human society and have predatory intent towards humans. This is what most people assign to the reptilians. So most people believe when you say reptilians, the assumption is alien beings living in three-dimensional reality on Earth who have no personal connection to humans or human society, and they have predatory intent towards humans. That is an assumption. Why is this so important? Because your assumptions will determine your conclusions. Your assumptions will determine your conclusions. If you operate from the assumption, let's go back to assumption number 1. If you operate from the assumption that aliens are three-dimensional beings, number 1, right there, you will assume that anything you see is a three-dimensional manifestation. This is why people can't tell the difference. I think I can. But a lot of people can't tell the difference between a higher dimensional light phenomenon coming from a higher dimensional being and an actual physical flying UFO craft. The reason why they can't tell the difference is because their assumption is aliens are three-dimensional physical beings. So even if they were looking at a light phenomenon that is coming from a higher dimension, their brain will automatically just assume it's a spaceship. They won't even think past that because their assumption is what gives them the basis for all of their conclusions. So I have a different assumption. So when I see something in the sky, I am looking to see, is that a three-dimensional object or is that a higher dimensional manifestation? That's because my assumption is different. See how important it is? That gives me my assumption because it's different than the basic assumption. It gives me more options to critically examine what is going on, and it gives me a more likely probability of coming to an accurate conclusion about what I'm seeing. Right? All right, so possibility number 1, aliens are three-dimensional physical beings. Every single alien abduction account involves physical beings walking around and physically manipulating people. Just because they can walk through walls and go up into the that is like 1% of it. There's a whole other explanation for that. There's a couple other explanations for that. But the fact of the matter is that every alien abduction encounter involves a three-dimensional physical alien doing three-dimensional physical stuff. And that's because our assumption is that they're like us. And they're not. Three-dimensional physical beings who exist on other planets. So that carries with it. If you assume that three-dimensional physical beings who live on other planets are coming to Earth, the other planets part has a huge emotional weight to it. There's an assumption in that you're not even aware of. Because without even thinking about it, if somebody tells you there is a race of beings on another planet, your brain will immediately tell you this assumption. Your brain will immediately say, well, they've evolved completely separate from us. They don't know anything about us. They won't understand, like, or appreciate us. They must be hostile to us. That's going to be your first reaction. No human being, without thinking it through, is going to have a different reaction to that. And so your fear is going to kick in. And of course, they have no connection to human society, and that will make them predatory. Even if it's just, well, they're just coming to look at us. They don't know what we are. We already project onto them that they're going to treat us the way we treat some unknown animal we've never seen before. Or in times past, some unknown primitive society. That they're going to do to us what we do to other people and other animals. That is an assumption. Every single sci-fi movie where they're going to go check out some alien crash, there's some military guy in there who says, we have to assume they're hostile. And maybe if you're lucky, there might be one scientist character who says, how do we know that they're hostile? And the military guy says, because that's exactly what we would be doing if we were in their shoes. And he's saying, I'm projecting onto them what I understand. Of course I would do it, so anybody else would do it. It's total narcissism. That's what's packed into that first assumption. Do you understand how that assumption is going to create all kinds of conclusions that may or may not be true? Aliens are three-dimensional physical beings who exist on other planets, have no connection to humans or human society, and therefore they have predatory intent on humans and they want to dominate planet Earth. It's a total assumption. And if you act based on that assumption, you can write the rest of the story. Assumption possibility number 2. I've already shared this with you. Aliens are three-dimensional beings. I've already shared with you the problems with that. You assume that they walk around in three-dimensional form. I don't care if you think that they're shapeshifters or not. That doesn't mean anything. They're still three-dimensional. And that assumption of being three-dimensional carries huge weight and huge impact on your further conclusions. So assumption number 2, aliens are three-dimensional beings from Earth who have no connection to humans or human society and have predatory intent towards humans. People fear the draconians, they fear the reptilians, even those that believe that reptilians are coming from underneath the earth and all that other stuff. They fear that because what is it? It's again a projection. What we've got here are the 2 projections that humans have about themselves. If we see aliens as being extremely three-dimensional, foreign beings, alien means foreign beings from another planet, but who have these huge brains, we automatically assume that they will treat us as inferior animals. And that is a projection. If we see them as evil reptilian beings that come from underneath the earth, then we project onto them our animal instincts, which is we want to hunt it, we want to kill it, we want to fuck it, we want to eat it. It's a projection of our animal instincts, like our most deep animal instincts. We are projecting our 2 varying three-dimensional human, non-spiritual human interactions with our world. It's all projection. And they are assumptions. And if you don't know that, you can't make logical conclusions. You will make conclusions based on your fears and your projections, and you can write the rest of that story. Assumption possibility number 3. This is a different assumption possibility. Aliens are not three-dimensional beings at all, but are interdimensional beings from other planets. All right, so you with me now? So now we've moved into a different place, but in this assumption possibility, we then project our narcissistic projection of what we think spiritual evolution is. This is one of the reasons I get so bent out of shape when people come onto the channel and they start giving the, something that I call, the New Age nonsense, the New Age love and light, because it shows our projection that if I become spiritual, I will no longer have any feelings. I will be in this state of intellectual neutrality, and that is a projection. It is actually a projection of wanting to escape painful feelings, wanting to escape vulnerable feelings. And so this assumption is what a lot of people also think. They will think, aliens are not three-dimensional beings. They live in higher dimensions, but that means we don't understand what higher dimensions are. So we have fear of them. So aliens are not three-dimensional beings at all, but are interdimensional beings from other planets who have no connection to human beings and have predatory intent on humans and planet Earth. That's even more frightening. And many of the ufologists will delve into the possibility of ETs being transdimensional or interdimensional, but then you all of a sudden immediately fall into these discussions about interdimensional vampiric beings that want to steal your soul, or false beings of light that want to trap you in reincarnation. You automatically fall into those fearful categories. And again, it's conflation and projection. And people don't realize that they have these. So we have to know what we think and what we believe before we're going to tackle this. Assumption number 4. Aliens are interdimensional beings from Earth who have predatory intent on humans. So now we see them as interdimensional beings, but they're from Earth, which means what? They're demons. You hear this a lot. I hear this all the time. Don't interact with extraterrestrials. They're demons. The flat earthers will say, don't interact with ETs. They're demons from below the earth. The Christians will say, don't interact with ETs from other planets. They're demons from other planets that are coming to destroy the earth. Assumption possibility number 5, aliens are demons from other planets. Assumption number 6, aliens are demons from planet Earth. Assumption possibility number 7, aliens are demons from lower dimensions beneath the earth. Here's the least acknowledged assumption that almost every single person has about extraterrestrials. I had this unconscious assumption before I interacted with them. And that's because of the narrative. The abduction narrative creates this assumption in people's mind. Assumption possibility number 8. The only way humans can interact with ETs is if they're forcibly abducted. When I first started doing CE5, there was a conscious fear that, in fact, I think I spent a month before I even decided to do CE5. I spent a month meditating on this possibility. I was aware that I believed that if I let them know I'm here, they might want to abduct me. So I had to think about that. Was I willing to take that risk? And I finally decided that I was willing to take the risk because, being who I am, I'm not willing to be afraid of that kind of nonsense. I've come to believe that I have power within me, that anything evil that comes at me, I have the ability to destroy or avoid. And so I said, if ETs really do abduct people, then they are narcissists and I can destroy them. And that's what gave me the balls to go ahead and go through with it. But it didn't take my fear away. As you see in the video, I'm scared out of my mind when it's happening the first time. All right, so continuing on. We could go on, but you can see that there are so many possible assumptions about these beings that if we don't know what our assumptions are, let me change that. If we don't know what our assumptions are, we can easily get lost in all of the possible assumptions. If someone has an assumption, for example, that aliens are demons from other planets who are intent on destroying the Christian religion and feasting on the flesh and spirits of humans, when that person reads any account of alien abduction, this person will immediately feel justified in their religious beliefs, even though they will be full of fear and anger. If this person hears my accounts of blissful interactions with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings of light, this person will immediately assume that I've been possessed or have been deceived by demons myself, and therefore they won't listen to anything I have to say. So take some time to examine what your assumptions are about ETs and aliens. And honestly ask yourself if you have any fear or personal agendas that might be clouding your ability to know the truth. Are you willing to drop any assumptions that might be inaccurate? If so, then you are ready to discuss the issue. What I will attempt to do now is to show you the details of exactly how alien abductions take place and how that will prove that abduction events are taking place solely in the third dimension, and moreover, the details of the abductions are typical of humans during military abductions. All right, so I'm not going to take the time to go over all of that or read anything more now. What I'm saying, and what I go in later into the chapters, I go into detail explaining and showing you that every single alien abduction event ever reported is actually a classic definition of a military abduction of a human being. The only difference is that the people who are abducted have a belief that they're being abducted by aliens. But everything else about the abduction scenario is absolutely congruent with military abductions of human beings. All right, I need to look at this paragraph because I think I misspelled something. I don't want to miss it. Are you willing to drop any assumptions that might be inaccurate? If so, then you are ready to discuss this issue. What I will attempt to do now is to show you that the details of exactly how alien abductions take place will prove that abduction events are taking place solely in the third dimension, and moreover, the details of the abductions are typical of humans during military abductions. All right, so it's a long run-on sentence, but I'm going to keep it anyway. All right, so having said that, we'll come back to this later. Of course, I want to keep going because I like getting to making my point, but if I do, I'll just be talking all night, and I got stuff to do, so we'll leave it there. I'm happy to take any questions. If you have a question, write the word question in all caps. If you have a feeling, write a feeling. Before I go any further, the point of this channel is not for you to listen to me rant. The point of this channel is for you to do energy work to shift your body to the next level of vibration so that you can easily make the shift into the higher dimension that is coming to this earth. And the way you do that, you go here to thunderwizard.com. You click around until you see Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. You subscribe to that. If you subscribe to that, you'll have access to everything, including the Manifestation Mastery course and the Mastery of Shamanism course. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. It's going to cost less than you going to Starbucks and getting a coffee every couple of days. Why everybody isn't subscribed to it, I don't know. It's the most powerful energy practice I know of. You can go see all of my books, all of my everything else at courses.thunderwizard.com. If you want the most powerful energy practice known to human beings, maushan.thunderwizard.com. All right, now, having done commercials, I'll take a look and see who's on here and what we got to say. Vincent.thunderwizard.com says hello. He is one of my Vedic astrologers. Go to his website, Vincent.thunderwizard.com, to see all of the other stuff that he offers. Looking for the questions here. Thundra Gucharan says hello. Thundra.thunderwizard.com. She is one of my Vedic astrologers and a powerful shaman in her own right. Check her out, Thundra, Thundra.thunderwizard.com. Kim B, question. Could they be beings that have no... Okay, so did you ask the question before or after I went through all that? I don't know because I wasn't watching. Could they be beings that have no human form and the only way we could see them would be if they put something like a ragdoll suit on for us to see them? Kim B, you have not done CE5, have you? I am telling you guys, let me bring it up. I appreciate your question, Kim B, but I can tell from that question you haven't done any CE5, or if you have, you haven't had the feeling that you've had a personal interaction with an ET. Am I right? So we need to take a look at this. Let's bring that up here. The fourth method of revolution, the transdimensional revolution, the interdimensional revolution, whichever word you want to use. If you scroll down to methods of revolution, the fourth one, this is the most important thing that we can do. Initiate contact and create relationships with interdimensional beings. So that question that you've just asked, you will answer immediately. What you're talking about is, again, your question without realizing it, because you didn't state the difference between ETs and aliens. I'm saying there's a difference. Because you didn't state the difference, just the nature of the question, you've conflated the two. So understanding that you haven't done CE5, the reason why I'm entertaining the question is because you're not the only person your brain is going to try and figure out what the heck they are. And so you're going to come up with things like that. The short answer to your question is no. That's not it at all. But could they be beings that have no human form? Well, they don't have human form unless they're humans. Only humans have human forms. Dogs don't have human forms. Gorillas don't have human forms. Only humans have human forms. So by human form, do you mean 3D physical flesh? Could they be beings that don't have any physical 3D form? Certainly that's a possibility, but that's not entirely accurate either. And the only way we could see them would be if they put on something like a ragdoll suit? No. Nope. But what you are describing is exactly one of the things that humans do. Humans do actually have suits. They have these alien suits that are very well crafted, that look very real, that people can put on, and you wouldn't know the difference unless you didn't believe in aliens and you thought the only thing that can be is a human in a suit. But bear in mind, the people that are being abducted are also being drugged. They're being drugged, and they can deliver drugs in so many easy ways. They can deliver it in an aerosol, so you could you could be breathing it in and not knowing it. There's all kinds of ways, but they also have electromagnetic technology where they can pump electromagnetic waves in your brain, which will put you into an altered state of consciousness. They can also put pictures in your brain. So what's happening with a lot of these people who are being abducted is that the first thing that happens is that there's their electronic devices start going haywire, which of course freaks them out. Then there will be a bright flash of white light where everything inside and outside of the house or their car is completely blinded by white light, which totally disorients them. And then there will be some method of, if it's not an energy beam into the head or an electromagnetic device on the body, they will use drugs to knock you out. So under the influence of those kinds of things, if you see a human being walking around in a gray suit, or if there's if they've got a midget or a kid or something like that in an alien suit, you're not going to know what you're seeing. You're going to believe it. But worse is if they pump into your mind pictures of aliens, and you're already under the influence of either drugs or something like that. You're not going to know what you're seeing. So no, I understand your question, but again, it comes from not having done CE5. And if you do CE5, you'll never ask that question again. But they do have a physical form, those that are beneath the 9th dimensional level. And there are some that are 9th dimensional and higher, and those beings do not have physical form. But any being that is in a higher dimension can easily interact with the 3rd dimension without being physically in the 3rd dimension. So they can do things, that seem to be like poltergeists or ghosts or all kinds of other things. And the only thing that's going on is that they're poking around in the 3rd dimension while they're still vibrating at a 5th dimensional or higher. And so that in itself can be very frightening. That's what happened with me when the first ET that showed up. My belief is, I don't know this for a fact, but my belief is that he was physically there, but he was phased up into the 5th dimension. And he literally had his finger on my crown chakra. And I saw in my mind's eye what I believe he looked like. Again, I could be wrong about this too. But based on what I saw in my mind's eye, he was he was a 7-foot tall mantis being. So that'll flip you out too. So these beings have physical form. You can have a physical body in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th dimensions. But you can't see any of that from the 3rd dimension. So those of you who say, no, I'm already in the 6th dimension, I'm already in the 8th dimension, if you were, you wouldn't be able to type on a computer. If you're still walking around in your physical body, you're in the 3rd dimension. Sorry, that's just the way it works. Get over yourself. Anyway, to answer your question, could they be beings that have no human form? They don't have a 3D form, but they do have a physical form in whatever dimension they live in. And the only way we could see them would be if they put something like a ragdoll suit on. No, they can manifest in all kinds of different ways. If they're in a higher dimension, the orbs of light could be literally them just sticking their finger into the 3rd dimension. But what you'll see is an orb of light. They can, if they choose to, change their vibration and come down to the 3rd dimension, but they don't like to do that. Again, I'm willing to be wrong about any of this, but they much prefer not to completely manifest in the 3rd dimension for the same reason we wouldn't want to, walk around in a sewer. It just doesn't feel good. When you're living in that higher dimensional state, it's just a much happier, healthier place to be. They don't want to come down to this. They want to help us move up to their level. So they could, if they wanted to. Now, I'm talking about extraterrestrials. I'm not talking about aliens. Aliens are human beings. Aliens in human abductions are either human beings in suits, they are false images or false images being put into somebody's brain, or they are robots, AI manipulated robots. Many people who have been abducted will say, number one, the aliens look and act like robots, and number two, when you touch them, if they're doing something on you and you touch them, you won't feel anything. It'll feel like a doll, because that's all it is. It's just it's some kind of either remote controlled thing or actual AI robot. It's not a real entity, which only makes it all that more creepy. Okay, what else? I think I answered your question. It's a great question, Kim B. Thank you. But I strongly recommend Google CE5 protocols and go do them. Sorry, you guys can't see me because I'm behind the thing here. Go Google CE5 protocols, Kim B, and then you'll never have to ask that question again. You can go and do it with a group of people if you're afraid to do it alone. You can get with a group of people. It's an incredibly empowering, beautiful experience. Okay, let's see what else. And by the way, every time that you do CE5, whoever you are, you poke a hole into the dimensional boundary and you destroy the deep state's ability to control a little bit. Every time you do CE5, you take a little bit more power away from the deep state. Kim B, honest feeling, I often wish they would come and abduct me. Why? I'm really saddened to hear you talk like that. That shows some things we need to look at. Maybe because I remember going to see Close Encounters of the First Kind and E.T. when it first came out. Right, so you don't have to. You don't have to wait for them to come and abduct you. Look, they're not interested in taking you out of your world. These beings, here's the end result of this book that I'm going to be writing. These beings are guardian angels, spirit guides, bodhisattvas, ancestor spirits, demigods. They have been with us our whole life. If you've never experienced an extraterrestrial, guess what? You have. You have been with them your whole life. They're not aliens. That's why I don't use that word. They are as human as any being can be. They've been humans before. They may reincarnate as humans again. They are here to guide you. Their sole purpose here is to guide you in your human life. You don't need them to come and save you or take you away from anything. What they will do is, if you reach out to them interdimensionally, you give them permission to come and help you move beyond all kinds of karmic issues that are keeping you trapped in that ego thing that we have. For the first time in history, the guardian angels, the bodhisattvas, the spirit guides are saying, hey guys, we're going to give you a cheat sheet. Do you guys want out? We'll get you out of the matrix. But you have to ask. If you don't ask, they're going to continue to interact the way they always have. Through your intuition, through angel numbers, through signs that you can't really do anything with. You're sitting there and you had a dream, and I think I felt the presence of something. You can go beyond that, but you have to break that 3D, 5D barrier. That is only done if you do some kind of action to initiate contact on a higher dimensional level. By doing that, you give them permission. And you are saying, I know that what you're going to do is going to be beyond my three-dimensional understanding. Because if they showed up, if they just broke through the dimensional wall and showed up, I guarantee you would either not see it, not understand it, shit your pants, or talk yourself out of it. Because it would be so different. It would be so bizarre. It is so beyond our 3D understanding that you wouldn't know what to do with it. And besides that, it would be damaging to you. They would be violating your dimensional boundaries, and they're not going to do that. Unlike the alien abduction experience where you have beings that violate every single one of your boundaries, they will not violate any one of your boundaries. But they will interact with you to the degree that you are able and willing. For the first time in history, they are willing to have human beings, be part of their... it sounds unbelievable, and until I can figure out another explanation for it, there literally is at least a third of me that's not in this dimension. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My right ear is constantly closing and opening. And I know that I am connecting to, it's because there's a part of me that's not in this dimension anymore. So, ideally all of me will get shifted up to that higher dimension, but there's still work that I need to do in my physical 3D body. So the majority of me is still here. And you can have that depending on your karma, depending on your dharma, depending on what you want and what you're able to handle. But we have to initiate it. So please don't sit on your ass and wait for them to come and get you, because they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. You have to make the decision to go to them. And then you can have a whole different experience. Every single person that I know that has done CE5, which is real simple, you just do a very simple meditation to connect with them. Every single person who has done it, their lives have transformed beyond what I ever could have thought possible for them. And the same is true for me. So I offer that to you. You say, yes, I have done CE5. You have. All right. So my apologies. Keep doing it then. Keep doing it then so that you can continue to learn and interact with them. You can also ask. You can say, hey, can you explain more to me? Help me understand more about who you are. Help me understand more about our three-dimensional reality. My first ET book, which is out in print right now. Extraterrestrials are coming to Earth. I talk about the preferred probability experiment. So read that. That will help explain a lot. Anyway, my apologies. I guess I was wrong. Keep doing it. Keep doing CE5. It took me a few times before I really started connecting on the higher levels. But to be honest, I mean, the being told me that he was going to put me through a really serious shamanic initiation. So, I can't say how everybody's experience is going to be. Maggot explorers. I strongly suggest that you change your name. Why do you want to be a maggot? It's important what you call yourself. Maggot explorers feeling. Those aliens I feel and understand are the souls that have already evolved into 5D. You're talking about what I call extraterrestrial. Alien means foreign, and aliens are, according to my assumption, they're humans pretending to be extraterrestrials. So I'm going to assume you mean extraterrestrials. Those extraterrestrials I feel and understand are the souls that have already evolved into 5D, and they are waiting for us to evolve and learn to get into contact with them and move forward. I don't have a problem with that. I think that may very well be true. I think it's at least partially true. I believe that some of them have been human before and would become human again. I think it's very possible. I've been an ET and I've come back as a human, and I know other people who have the same kind of experience as well. So I don't think they're only people who have gone to 5D. I think they've gone to 5D. The fact is, every time a human being dies, they go to 5D, 6D, 8D, 9D. They go to all the different, all kinds of different dimensions. So it's just we just happen to have a 3D meat suit. It's, let's get rid of the spiritualizing of it, because there's an assumptive criticism in what you're saying. You don't realize it. There's an assumptive criticism in there, which is saying that, if I haven't gotten to 5D, I'm not good enough yet. And only those that have gotten good enough, they get to go to 5D. And then, they're going to wait around for those of us when we get good enough. And, it's a back and forth thing. Look, let's get rid of all of that spiritual pseudo-religious stuff where going to 5D means that I've gone beyond my bad 3D. 3D is just a world that we live in. That's it. And we all get here because we choose to get here. I don't buy into that whole karmic stuff that you're not good enough so you only get to be in 3D. I don't believe that. I absolutely know that I chose to be here because there's all kinds of fun stuff you can do in 3D that you can't do in other dimensions. But there's, limitations to it. Anyway, I appreciate your feeling. Kim B questioned, I did a guided CE5, but I didn't see anything. You don't have to see anything. So here's what I've learned about what CE5, the purpose of CE5 is not to see something. The purpose of CE5, and as I'm saying that, they're the purpose of CE5 is to open a portal for you to meditate with them. The first thing they're going to want to do is meditate with you. And you may not have an experience, you may not even see or feel anything. Or you may go, yeah, I just had a really great meditation. Let me share with you again, I've shared this before because I think it's so hilarious. When I was early on trying to find out what CE5 was about, I looked on YouTube and I found a guy who shared his CE5 experience. It was hilarious. So he wanted to do CE5. He was going to do it alone. And he got the app, the CE5 app, and he went down to the park and he, played the app and he played the meditation and he meditated. And he said, I got so deep into the meditation. I was really there and I was doing it for a really long time. And then I realized that nothing was going on. I was looking up in the sky and looking around and there wasn't anything happening. I was flashing my light in the sky and I just realized, okay, I give up. They're not going to show up. So he says out loud as he's getting up and walking towards his car, he says, you guys have to do something extreme to get my attention. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume that you don't exist. So he's walking back to his car and he gets this feeling and he looks back. He looks back to where he was sitting and he sees this faint glow. And he's looking at it and he's going, what the heck? Am I? And so he had heard that if you flash a light at ET craft, they'll flash back at you. So he flashes his light at the glowing light and the light goes and it gets really bright and shines back at him. And he took off and he ran back to his car and he drove home and he said he went to sleep with the lights on. The point is that they were with him the whole time. They were meditating with him. They're not interested in freaking you out. And my experience is they're very conservative when it comes to showing anything. I can only make assumptions as to why that is. My first feeling is that the lights are just to get your attention and make you think beyond where your brain is at. My second feeling is that there's a possibility that if they make a big, light in the sky, that they're going to attract deep state military that's going to come looking for them. And you, perhaps. And again, my third one is that they're really thinking how to best connect with you. But what they want is they want you to meditate with them. They want that more than anything else. Because that's where you really connect with them. Look, you see some lights in the sky? So what? How has that helped you beyond the very real thing of going, oh my God, the universe isn't what I thought. Oh my God. And then you start to, but I guarantee you, if you see lights in the sky, which is kind of interesting to me, I think it's kind of funny when I see, films of people doing CE5 and they're all looking up in the sky. And I guarantee you the ETs are standing right next to you. And they're, whatever they're doing, they're throwing their intention out. So you see a light and you think, oh my God, that's their spaceship. It's not their spaceship. They're sitting right next to you and they're just, they're playing around with the fifth dimension, the third dimension. So you see something. But they're right there next to you. So you don't have to go out into the desert and do all that stuff that I did. I mean, look, I've already been interacting as we're talking. The ETs are interacting with me the whole time I'm talking to you. And I'm going to guess they're not going to do anything. I'm not touching it. They're not going to do anything to my radio. They're not interested in that. They're not interested in the circus act. They only do that if they have to. If that's the only thing that you can see, that's the only thing that will get your attention, they'll do something like that. But once they've got your attention, once you accept the idea that they exist, and once you realize that you can connect with them, they're going to want to meditate with you more than anything else. All right. What else? Claudio Pena Aguilar question. Ain't that what the love wave is supposed to do? Take away everything that is not of love? Ain't that something that will happen without doing so? I don't understand your question. I appreciate that you're here. But listen, Claudio, I know that you can write a full sentence and that you can write cogently and you can get, you've got some really cool happening lingo, brah. Just ask me a question. I don't know what you're asking me. Try again. Vincent.thunderwizard.com, honest feeling, I am feeling very needy. I want to be comforted. I understand that feeling. I go through that myself quite a lot. Thanks for sharing that. Kim B, CE5 meditation, but I didn't see anything, not even myself. I don't know what that means. So I thought they were not visible to me. Is that possible? Why are you focused on that? I mean, you seem to have a real fixation on being able to see them. I don't see them. I barely get, a kind of, if I get anything, I might barely get some kind of, vague sort of outline of something in my mind, even when they've wanted to show themselves to me. Not everybody has the ability. There are some people that do CE5 and they see everything. So it's not about that. And I really would encourage you to stop fixating on that. There are many other ways that they can connect with you, physically, emotionally, mentally. I don't know, is it possible? Is what possible? They're not visible to you? If they wanted to, they could make themselves visible to you. If they wanted to, they could do all kinds of things. They're obviously trying to connect to you on a level that, I don't know what it is. So keep doing it. Here's the thing. If you keep doing it, I guarantee you will break through some barrier. Or do it with a bunch of other people. But if you're doing it alone, especially, it's going to be really hard to know what's going on the first couple of times. Most people. I didn't have a verifiable experience until my third time. The first 2 times I was successful. I even caught it on video. But not when I was there, I didn't see anything. I felt it, but I didn't know what I was supposed to be feeling. I didn't know what to look for. So you may not know what to look for, but the point is just keep doing it. I mean, what have you got to lose? Worst case scenario, you'll find out it's a bunch of nonsense. And you can stop watching my channel and go on with your life. All right. That's not a question. That's not a feeling. Simba Huruma question. What would life be like living in the 6th, 7th, or 8th dimensions? I've already talked about that. Go buy my book. Extraterrestrials are coming to Earth. You can go get it on Amazon. You can get it on michaelwilliamdenny.com. I give a very specific, very detailed outline of what happens in every single dimension. Go get the book. Kim B, sorry, I'm on my phone and it's hard to tell. Well, I understand that. Look, I'm sorry. There's just no victims here. You don't have to be on your phone if you don't want to be. They're cheap computers to buy. Guys, seriously, stop. You don't have to be limited by anything. If being on your phone doesn't help you to interact, spend a couple $100 on a cheap computer. There are no victims in this world. Sorry. Afroman 316 question. Are composed mudras excellent for opening and closing our energy work? Are composed mudras? I don't know what a composed mudra is. Afroman 316, are you doing any of the practices that I have here? Do you mean if you make up a mudra, is it going to be good? I don't understand your question, my friend. You have to be more clear with your question because it's not clear to me. Maggot Explorer is not a feeling. If it's not a feeling, I'm not going to read it. If it's not a question, I'm not going to read it. Timothy Zoll, honest feeling. When I do CE5, I have no expectations. Excellent. The first few times I did CE5, and I'm glad I did it, I would say in meditation, I have no demands, I have no expectations. That is an excellent mindset. And I was disappointed the first time, truth is the first time I made contact, and if I'd known what the hell I was doing, I would have walked away with a profound meditative experience because they were right next to me, to the left of me, and they were talking to me, but I couldn't hear them because I was too blocked out, and I was looking around, for things, I had an expectation. They were there. Same time, second time around. Third time around, I couldn't deny it because I brought my, my radio, and it went nuts. If it hadn't gone nuts, I might not have known what was going on. So I think that's excellent. Don't have any expectations. Right, at the very least, you have a good meditation. And here's a truth that I found out. Throughout your life, if you can think about times where you've had really good, deep meditations, I can give you probably an 80% chance prediction that there was an ET sitting next to you meditating with you. But you didn't know that ETs did that and that existed, and you had a great meditation. And I'm telling you, they're here. You know, once that boundary is taken, you know, comes up, you realize they're here with you the whole time. This is what the deep state guys don't get. You know, they're doing all this stuff to try and copy what they believe aliens and extraterrestrials are. And they're coming up with some really advanced technologies and some really dangerous technologies. And they have no clue that even while they're there trying to figure out how to be exactly like ETs, the ETs are there with them. And the ETs would talk to them and help them, would help them look at their pain and their psychopathy and help them heal from that if they only simply reached out. If they had the willingness to shift and to grow, they would experience it. But the ETs are there. They're there with everybody. And you understand this when you get to a higher level when you get to higher dimensional levels, you can be in infinite numbers of places and have 100% of your attention on infinite numbers of places. That means that we could, I don't know, maybe a fifth dimensional, but definitely one ninth dimensional ET, which you could be, by the way. You may already be a ninth dimensional ET having a human experience. I am. I know that my higher self, at the very least, is a ninth dimensional ET, and I am the holographic third dimensional experiment of that ET. But a ninth dimensional ET can be with literally every single person on the planet simultaneously, hearing every single thought, every single feeling. And the third dimensional person could have absolutely no clue. This is what ETs are. This is why aliens and ETs, it's such a huge difference. ETs have absolutely zero to gain from abducting somebody, taking their fluids, experimenting on them. They have nothing to gain because they already know everything about you. Everything. Without having to do any kinds of tests. And that's only because they live in a higher dimension. If you lived in a higher dimension, you would be able to look onto Earth and see everything about everybody. This is what the deep state doesn't get. Let's see what else. All right. Claudio, question. You said earlier that the love wave will happen without us needing to do something for it to happen. Is that still your assumption? Well, Claudio, thank you for actually putting the effort into respecting yourself enough so that you wrote the question in such a way where you were respecting your need to explore this subject. Thank you for that. In order to understand that, we have to stop thinking in 3 dimensions. To explain this phenomenon, let me explain to you what it's like for the average Hindu who talks about Ganesha. Bear in mind that the Hindu religion is the only surviving Indo-European religion. I mean, I've got my Norse background and, I study Norse mythology and religion. I have my own experience with that. But there is nobody alive on planet Earth today that has a direct connection to anybody who's been practicing that religion since before Christianity. So the only place in the world where Indo-European religion is still being practiced and has been practiced continuously is in India. So they know, they have an understanding of what true polytheism is, what our European ancestors did, what other polytheists in other parts of the world still do if they have an unbroken connection to their history. So if you ask your typical Hindu, about Ganesha, and you say, hey, is Ganesha a symbol? I'll say, yes, Ganesha is a symbol. And you go, okay, but I thought Ganesha was a real person. Oh no, he's a real person. Okay, wait, I thought Ganesha was a god. Oh, he is a god. Wait, but I thought there was only one god. That's right, there's only one god. But wait, I thought that Ganesha and Shiva and Parvati and Shakti, there was a bunch of other gods. Oh yeah, there's infinite numbers of gods. You won't be able to nail them down on anything. So that's what your question is. Your question is trying to nail me down into a three-dimensional understanding, and we're talking about something that goes beyond 3 dimensions. So I invite you to drop that. You live in physical space-time, the 4th dimension of our reality. We live in 3 dimensions, and the 4th dimension is time. And because we live in 3 dimensions, we experience time going in one direction. We think it's a river that flows in one direction, but it's not. It is a bunch of continuous moments that are sandwiched together, that you manifest a new reality every nanosecond. And each reality that you manifest every nanosecond that you feel like is coming from past to future is actually you're grabbing from a potential timeline and creating it. It's an illusion that these different slices are part of one continuous timeline. They're not. So there is the possibility that in the next nanosecond, the solar wave will come. There's a possibility that the solar wave has already hit. I'm getting really stoned just thinking about that. There's a possibility, there's all kinds of possibilities, but you can't see that if you're looking from past to future. So when you ask me the question about, you said that the love wave will do something whether we do anything or not, I don't know that that's what I said. What I said was, I believe what I said was, that the ETs, first off, when I've asked them, when is the energy wave going to hit, they give me answers I don't like. They say, very soon. I don't know what that means. Does that mean tomorrow? Does that mean next year? I get no answer. They've also said to me, the solar wave will hit when you decide. They won't tell me a date or a time. The reason for that is because they're not in 3D, they're in 5D. And in 5D, time is not flowing in one timeline. Time is a bunch of possibilities that are happening simultaneously. And so they're already seeing it happen. They're seeing you in the wave. They can tell by looking at it that it's in our basic timeline. Surround this time now. They can see that. But they can't tell you what day or time because the clock thing and the calendar is something we made up. It doesn't exist. So the answer to your question is yes to both. So meditate on that. You said earlier that the love wave will happen without us needing to do something. Right. And I also said we're going to have to do something, otherwise we're going to have an extinction event. I've said both of those things. And both of those things are true. And the only way for you to experience the truth of both of those statements is if you get the hell out of 3D. That's not going to happen unless you connect to higher dimensions. So this is why I think everybody should do CE5. Because eventually you'll start, every time you do CE5, when you're meditating with ETs, you're in between dimensions. You don't realize it, but you are. The more that you do that, the more exposure you have to their dimension. I'm getting really stoned thinking about this. The more that you do that, the more you get exposed to their dimension. And then pretty soon more of you is in 5D than in 3D. Maybe that's how it's going to happen. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is you still have to make the choice. So if you're asking me, Claudio, should we just sit on our ass and wait for the wave to come? No. You should be doing everything in your power to connect to higher dimensional energies. You should, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. You should be doing that every day. If you don't want to do that, you should be doing the Hool Breath and the Awakening the Immortals. That won't cost you anything. You should be doing CE5. That won't cost you anything. You can do whatever the hell you want. But if you want to move past that not knowing how time works and how two things can be happening at the same time, you're going to have to connect to a higher dimension. And that's going to take a choice and some work on your part. Agent of the universe, question. I've been having this feeling I'm not alone. It's because you're not. It's a neutral kind of feeling. What should I do to encourage communication with the ET family? I've already told you what to do. You already know what to do. Just keep doing it. Keep doing all the things that you need, that you know that you need to do. Talk to your therapist. Do your meditations. Do something good for somebody every day. Do CE5 meditations. Just keep going in that direction. You already know what the fifth dimension is supposed to be like. It's a place of love, of happiness, of joy, of patience, tolerance, acceptance. You can always work to be more tolerant, more patient, more loving, more accepting. And by doing that, you'll be connecting to them. And it will make them very happy. And trust me, when you make them happy, it makes them want to connect with you even more. And they do. They get very, very happy when people do that kind of stuff. They can't contain themselves. They jump for joy. I mean, their emotions are so intense. I can feel it. When I even do the slightest thing that makes them happy, I can feel them just absolutely going nuts with how happy they are if I'm doing something that connects me to their dimension. So think about it that way. Try to connect yourself to their dimension through your attitudes and your actions, and they will become absolutely beside themselves with happiness, and then they'll work even harder to connect with you. You say, I have expectations and it's hard to deal with that. So accept yourself. So you have expectations. You don't have to act on them. You don't have to dwell on them. It's just a feeling. That's it. Feelings are not facts. Feelings are not actions. They're just feelings. Take actions as though you didn't have expectations. Maggot Explorers, strong feeling. I don't care about strong. I don't care about mild. I just need a feeling. You guys, you don't need to. I am an explorer in this dimension. Why do you need to say that? Are you making yourself different from other humans? Do you think that other humans aren't explorers in this dimension? Every single human is an explorer in this dimension. I'm feeling a lot of ego coming from you right off the bat. I am an explorer in this dimension. I'm here to learn, to question, and to reach. So I haven't even got through it, and I can tell you're already passive-aggressively justifying something that you've said to me. You're wanting to fight with me about something. That's why you had to say it was a strong feeling. That's not what I'm looking for from you. Let me finish it before I keep going, because maybe I'm wrong. My name is a joke. Okay, so I don't care. I gave you a suggestion. Take it or leave it. I have no interest in arguing with you about it or anything. The fact that it has made your ego so uncomfortable that you need to justify it and convince me of it tells me you need to go and meditate. Who gives a crap what I think? I'm just some talking head on YouTube. Stop wasting so much energy trying to get people to accept you and love you and appreciate you. It's a complete waste of your time. And I don't care. There's nothing you're going to say that's going to change my feeling. You can't talk me out of my honest feeling for you. You know why? Because I care about you and I don't need anything from you. I don't need you to like me. I don't need you to agree with me. I don't need you to subscribe to my channel. I don't need you to watch my channel. I care about you enough that I'm going to tell you the truth whether you like it or not. And right now, I'm experiencing a passive-aggressive, extremely insecure person who can't tolerate the thought of somebody doing or saying anything that makes him feel like he's been criticized. And I'm not criticizing you. Calling yourself a maggot has meaning to your unconscious. And because I care about you, even though I don't know you, I don't want to see you do that to yourself. So stop trying to talk me out of my feelings. And stop trying to talk me out of my desire to help you. You can take what I say and do it or not do it. I could care less. I have no attachment to what you do or what you don't do. And I'm letting you know, my friend, this is love. This is what love really looks like. What you're doing, you don't realize it, but what you're doing is you're trying to abuse me by arguing with me, by passive-aggressively justifying, by trying to talk me out or convince me that my experience of you is inaccurate because you can't handle the thought of somebody thinking about you in a way that makes you uncomfortable. If you were really comfortable with it, you wouldn't care what I thought. So go meditate on that, my friend. If you're new to the channel and you really want to gain some of what I'm talking about, go and subscribe, because I can always tell when somebody's doing the work. My feeling is you're not doing the exercises. Am I wrong? Go do something. Go do the whole breath and the awakening the immortals every day for half an hour, and then tell me if you give a crap about what I think about your name. All right, moving on. Unveiled, honest feeling, I appreciate your expression. Okay, very good. I don't see any other questions, so that's it. We are done. My friends, I would like to be able to put into words the feelings that I have right now, the feelings that I have for you. The feeling that I'm getting is that this subject that I started talking about tonight is incredibly important. My feeling coming from my higher dimensional friends is that they feel very strongly that we will benefit from this revolution against everything within the third dimension. Everything. And it will culminate, if the deep state has enough time, it will culminate in a false alien attack on Earth. They will take human-created three-dimensional anti-gravitational aircraft. They will take fake alien suits, projections, robots, and they will put them in a fleet of ships, and they will launch them, and they will start attacking their own people. They will, just like in, you see in the movies, they will attack cities the same way that we see them doing it in the movies. And they will want you to believe that it is actual extraterrestrials that are doing it. And they will do it for the sole purpose of getting you so afraid that you will ask them to take complete control over every aspect of your life, and so that you can live in martial law, because that's what they're planning on doing. And the more that we interact with higher dimensional beings who are going out of their way to say to everybody, we're here, we're not what you thought we were. That's gone. The 3D illusion of angels and spirit guides and all of that. We used to be that for you, but we're not that anymore. We are your equals, and we want you to come and be with us, because Earth is going bye-bye. 3D Earth is going the way of the dodo. And either that's going to be because just Earth herself has just moved past that. Human evolution, mental and spiritual evolution has gotten to the point where we're no longer able to fit in 3D. And we are manifesting this psychopathic deep state that is seeking to manifest the worst of the third dimension, because it's the last ditch attempt of our unconscious 3D minds, our monkey fear brains. It's the last ditch attempt of our monkey fear brains that are trying to keep us in 3D, because our physical brains and bodies are afraid if we go to 3D, we will die. Okay? So, there you go. That's all I got. I wish you guys all the best. I love you. If I've done or said anything that's offended anybody, know that it comes from a place of love, and I'm human. Sometimes I make mistakes. Don't hold it against me. Don't let anybody's opinion have any effect on you. Go and find your joy and go do it. If you're new to the channel, go do the practices, go read my books, get up off your ass, do the energy work. Stop wasting your time just listening to people on YouTube, because that's 3D too. Please do the energy work. The more meditation you do, the more evolved I will become, and I will be grateful for any spiritual practice that you do to empower yourself. With that, my friends, I wish you all the best. I love you, and I'll see you next time.